Martha Maccallum. So this is a interview that Tulsi Gabbard did recently, I think within the last couple days on Fox News with Martha Maccallum about Iran. Let's see what they talk about and then discuss.
Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard of Hawaii, a 2020 Democratic presidential candidate, combat veteran, and major in the Army National Guard. She is campaigning tonight in New Hampshire. Thank you very much, Congresswoman Gabbard. Good to have you here tonight.
Thank you, Martha. Appreciate the opportunity.
So obviously you think this is heading in a very bad direction. What do you think happens next?
Well, we've got to be clear-eyed about the situation that we are in, that inching closer, actually more than inching, speeding towards an all-out war with Iran would make the wars that we've seen in Iraq and in Afghanistan look like a picnic. It will be far more costly in lives, and American taxpayer dollars, and all towards accomplishing what?
Not only American lives, but all of the lives of the people in Iran, Iraq, Syria, just the whole Middle East would be impacted, but yeah, for sure.
Oh, what objective? I think that's really at the crux of this decision that President Trump made to take out Soleimani. We've got to make sure that our commander-in-chief is making decisions that are based on the best interests of the safety and security of the American people.
Definitely wasn't based on the best interest of the safety and security of the American people. As evidence, right after the assassination took place, the U.S. State Department, I believe it was, issued a travel advisory saying that all, American citizens should get out of Iraq. So it definitely didn't make Americans any safer, and if anything, it will lead to more blowback against American citizens abroad. Look at Tulsi's face there, it's kind of funny.
National security, and that's not what's happened here.
All right, so put yourself for a moment in the White House, in the Oval Office. You have a situation where tankers are being hit. You have a situation where an American contractor...
just more propaganda by Fox News, which is basically, just another outlet or arm of the White House, and just parrots, conservative talking points. Iran poses no, threat to the United States whatsoever, and you have to be pretty delusioned and be, pretty drunk off that Fox News Kool-Aid to actually believe that.
Is killed, and then you have the embassy that we built. It is sovereign United States territory.
Oh my goodness. The people protesting at the embassy in Iraq were doing that in retaliation for airstrikes that the United States launched against Iraqi militias in direct violation, of Iraqi sovereignty. So that's what they're protesting. They want us out of their country. We need to listen. The people want us out. The Iraqi government wants us out. It's not making us any safer. It's costing us, trillions of dollars and thousands of lives. Get GTFO.
Under attack. What would you do?
Well, actually work to de-escalate the situation. We've got to recognize that these things didn't just happen overnight. These things began with Trump's withdrawal from the Iran nuclear agreement, choosing to move away from diplomacy, further escalating tensions between the U.S. and Iran, escalating crippling sanctions, a modern-day siege against Iran, sending more and more troops to the region, further escalating tensions, and designating Iran's military as a terrorist organization, further...
Wow, really strong response there by Tulsi, bringing up how the Trump administration unilaterally took the U.S. out of the Iran nuclear deal, as well as the crippling economic sanctions the Trump administration has levied against the country, more troop presence. Let's see what else she says.
Escalating this conflict with Iran, something that's never been done by any country anywhere in the world before.
All right.
And this is where he has not put the national security interests of our country first. I just want to finish this because there's two main points here of how he has undermined our national security. Number one, every day that goes on that Iran is not in the nuclear agreement, and just, I think yesterday announced that they're no longer abiding by any restrictions that were part of that agreement. That means they're closer to developing a nuclear weapon capability, putting us
and if you are Iran, why the U.S. unilaterally pulled out of that deal that they were fully in compliant with. U.S. then hits them with these crippling economic sanctions. Why would they not try to develop nuclear weapons as a deterrent? They've seen that, North Korea has nuclear weapons and the U.S. hasn't invaded there, but all the countries that, we've went to war with in the past haven't had them.
At risk. And number two, because our forces in Iraq, for example, are no longer going to be focusing on defeating and ensuring that Al-Qaeda and ISIS are not allowed a resurgence.
Yep, because General Soleimani played a huge part in that, and I think that's one of the reasons he was so beloved in Iran, was because he was pretty integral in helping defeat ISIS in the Middle East.
Our commander there yesterday just said, we're not doing that anymore because now our troops have to focus on Iran, allowing ISIS and Al-Qaeda to create and mount a resurgence that further puts us and our national security at risk.
There are plenty of people who agree with you, and then there are people on the other side of the equation who say when you are presented with intelligence, and members of Congress are going to hear what that intelligence...
Oh my God. This lie has already been exposed. Go check out the article from the Gray Zone where Max Blumenthal, points out that Soleimani was actually in Iraq to help de-escalate tensions between Iran and Saudi Arabia. Iraq was kind of the middle peace broker in those talks or negotiations, whatever you want to call it. He was not there plotting some type of attack against American interests or Americans, in the Middle East more broadly. The U.S. has been, the NSA, I should say, has been intercepting the communications between, the Iranian government, so they would know that no attack was imminent. It was just a lie to justify this, completely illegal war crime.
I imagine, on Wednesday, or at least a little bit more information on these imminent threats. And you don't take the target of opportunity to take this person out who is behind those threats to American citizens and American military. You take a risk of having people then turn back to you and say, how could you have allowed our people, our military, to be made vulnerable by this attack when you knew you had the opportunity?
What makes the U.S. vulnerable is these never-ending and totally unnecessary wars that put our troops in harm's way. All the troops were in the U.S. here that are currently in Iraq and the Middle East. Guess what? They wouldn't be in harm's way. They're not protecting American interests over there. They're making profits for the military-industrial complex.
To take this guy out. And I want you to listen for just a second to Sergeant Bartlett, who has been a frequent guest on this program, when he talked to us the other night about the IED that was Iranian-made that blew him up and changed his life and took away his friends. Watch this.
It's retribution for guys like this. Sergeant First Class Brian Mancini, dead at the hands of Iranian, past his injuries. Sergeant William J. Brooks, Corporal Bishop, Robert Sidham. All these guys with their friend, have died at the hands of the Iranians in this current regime, and some to the Quds Force, and Soleimani at his hands. So for us, it's...
So, of course they're bringing this person on to paint the narrative about Iran and Soleimani, but how about they bring on somebody that talks about how Soleimani was integral in the fight against ISIS? Why not do that? Because obviously it doesn't fit the narrative that they're trying to paint.
It's retribution.
So given the opportunity to take him out and prevent further attacks against men and women like that, how do you not take it?
Oh, look, Martha, I'm the only candidate running for president who's actually served in uniform in Iraq during the height of the war. I understand very clearly both what happened and the situation, the challenges that we are dealing with there now. But here's the key, that as Commander-in-Chief, the Commander-in-Chief should not be making decisions based on who is a bad guy or even who has blood on their hands. The commander-in-chief needs to make a decision about what is in the best national security interests of our country. And I just gave you the two biggest examples of how Trump's decision has undermined our national security and made the American people less safe. That is at the crux of what is wrong with the decision that Donald Trump made, and why it's so critical that we have a commander-in-chief who has experience and understanding in both foreign policy and our national security to make and with the foresight to see what the consequences of those decisions will be. This is why I'm running for president, to bring the experience that I have to fulfill that responsibility and to serve as commander-in-chief.
Everybody respects your service and your ability to discuss it from your own perspective, from your experiences there as well. I just want to play this. This is a soundbite from the Hezbollah leader, Nasrallah, threatening Americans and warning U.S. forces.
When the American soldiers and officers' coffins start moving to the United States, as they came vertically, they will go back horizontally. Then Trump and his administration will recognize that they really lost the region and they will lose the elections.
Interpret that threat for us, in practical terms. What do you expect to happen now?
Why would Hezbollah not put out a video like this when, Soleimani was extrajudicially assassinated by the U.S., in a, definite war crime? Of course, they want to plot some type of retaliation, and the U.S. keeps escalating it. Then these, attacks by Iran and other groups that support them are just going to, keep increasing.
It's hard to say with specifics, but I think that this statement is further affirmation of how this step that Trump took is a serious escalation of this war that further puts the American people and our troops in the region at risk. This is why I am calling for our troops to get out of Iraq and Syria now. Because the longer that they stay there, the more likely it is that we will find ourselves entrenched into another endless quagmire of a war with no one able to define what does winning look like, what does victory look like, what are we actually trying to accomplish, and how does it actually serve the best interests of our people and of our safety and security.
Congresswoman Gabbard.
There's the interview. Tulsi did a really good job, in my opinion. She brought up how the Trump administration has been the one escalating the tensions with Iran, first pulling out of the Iran nuclear deal, and then, leveling these sanctions, and then these airstrikes, and then now with this assassination of Soleimani. And definitely, some people on the left argue against, Democrats or progressives or whatever you want to label them of going on Fox News, but I think it's important that, when given the opportunity to speak to a different audience, that you take it, because then they're able to hear, a different perspective, as opposed to, the echo chamber that's usually present on Fox News that's just going to be parroting, those right-wing talking points. So I, appreciate Tulsi going on Fox News to talk about this. Peace.